We begin with breaking news. We have a guilty verdict in the trial of the paramedics charged in the death of Elijah McClain.
Just minutes ago, the jury handed down that decision in the trial of Jeremy Cooper and Peter Chikuniak. Denver 7's Danielle Kreuter has been at the Adams County Courthouse all day, and she joins us live now with the latest. Danielle.
Jessica, just 2 hours, less than 2 hours after jurors told the judge that they were deadlocked on their decision, they have finally come down with those verdicts. I'm going to read them out to you now. Defendant Jeremy Cooper found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, not guilty of second-degree assault, and not guilty of unlawful administration of drugs. Peter Chikuniak found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, not guilty of second-degree assault, but guilty of unlawful administration of drugs, Chikuniak being that medical lieutenant who was the one who approved the use of ketamine that night. Now, for the paramedics to be found guilty in this case of reckless manslaughter, the jury would have needed to agree that the men consciously knew that giving Elijah ketamine that night had an unjustifiable risk of killing him, yet did it anyways. But for the criminally negligent homicide, the standard is lower. The jury would only need to agree that the men should have known that there was a risk. Over the course of the trial, the prosecution argued that the paramedics always knew the risk of giving that sedative to a patient who the prosecution argued was not out of control, was barely moving at the time, and was already being held down by several officers. The defense's major claims that the paramedics were only following the procedures in place at the time as it related to the ketamine usage and how quickly they could care for Elijah while he was in police custody. Again, the jury deciding to convict both paramedics of criminally negligent homicide. We will have much more on this verdict and reaction from this verdict later on in our newscast. For now, reporting live in Adams County, I'm Danielle Kreuter, Denver 7.
And Danielle, before we let you go, we're curious, what was reaction like in the courtroom and around the courthouse when those verdicts came down?
Well, we do have a crew inside right now, Shannon. We know there was a bit of a delay before the verdict was read. Some folks, I believe, thought after hearing that the jurors were in a deadlock that we might not get a verdict tonight. So the judge wanting to put a pause on that verdict being read until everyone could get back, but eventually saying that he recognized that this was a very emotional case, eventually wanting to read that verdict then tonight.
Absolutely. Danielle, thank you very much. We'll hear much more from you and the other crews out there. And today's verdict comes after two previous trials for the three Aurora police officers involved in McClain's death. Those resulted in mixed verdicts.
Yeah, just last month, an Adams County jury found Aurora police officer Nathan Woodyard not guilty in the death of Elijah McClain. He was the officer who first made contact with McClain back in 2019. He was accused of putting him in a neck hold that did play a role in McClain's death.
In October, Randy Rodema found guilty of criminally negligent homicide and third-degree assault. Aurora police say he was terminated from his position following that conviction, sentencing for him January 5th.
In that same trial, former officer Jason Rosenblatt was found not guilty on all charges. And we will have more on this decision coming up tonight on Denver 7 News at 10.